everybody.
Hello, Hillary.
We have a very fun episode tonight.
This was one of the most interesting, intimate, fascinating episodes we've done.
I don't think we've ever laughed as much as we did during this recording.
And some of the wine we drank was 100% amazing. Very limited release, hard to find. And speaking of limited release, the guest we have on...
I think we were spoiled with both the wine and the content.
Russell is a very limited release kind of guy.
I would agree. Well, tune in and enjoy.
See ya.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is our... not our Valentine's Day episode. What is it?
Well, we have a pretty sweet Valentine here in the studio with us today.
I know, so we'll just call it Valentine's episode. A month late.
Yeah, he's very lovable. In fact...
Am I a little candy heart? Am I the one that says love me on the middle of the pink heart? I want to be loved.
I think we have one of the most lovable guests we've ever had on 911.
I think so too. Do you want to tell everyone who's here with us today?
If they heard him, if they've ever met him, they immediately know. Quite the gregarious, full-bodied, if you will. Never skips leg days at the gym.
Never skips leg days.
And also known as the Prince of Pinot, the King of Cabernet, and a hell of a winemaker, Russell Bevan. So,
woo! Okay. So what's neat is I feel the mojo from the seat I'm in. Having gone down the list of people who've sat on this piece of wood before me, I know there's some magic to be held here.
Is that what she said too?
I wish and aspire someday for my wife to say something like that. I don't know that I've achieved it yet, but by God, I'm not going to stop trying. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, cheers. Absolutely. Welcome. Well, I could go down the list of accolades, but we're gonna hit all those tonight. Here at 911 Wine, as you know, we review the police log. We giggle.
We are doing December 2021 for this episode.
Awesome.
And we are not doing an old one because every old December one I pulled up did not inspire me. So we're just going to let the wine speak for itself.
Lord knows Hillary has to be inspired, so let's go with the latest police log, December. 1,500 point wines have come from Russell Bevan. Probably more now. That's probably an old figure.
There's some.
More than that.
So there's so many people rating wines right now. I met some young winemaker, didn't know who I was, and his wife was talking about him. She says, my husband has 1,100 point wines. And I did the Scooby-Doo. Who is this guy? And they were all done by independent reviewers on the East Coast who have wine shops that he sold the wines to at a great discount. And I'm like, scores don't matter like they used to. Robert Parker was the king. Yeah. Jeb Dunnick does a great job. Antonio Galoni, Lisa Prati-Brown. They're great reviewers, but we've watered down what 100 points was. When Robert Parker, the king, gave you 100 points, you woke up the next day and you were Thor. Now you've got every monkey in the world giving their cousin 100 points, and it doesn't matter. I've had people say, oh, well, I've got 1,100 point wines. Well, it was 2 wines scored by 8 different people that all got its scores.
This is exactly what Heidi just said. With recording last week, she said the 100 point is not what it used to be. And the same thing about Robert Parker.
Yeah. Heidi Barrett we interviewed last week. And absolutely the same thing. It's kind of watered down, but...
it's still very cool.
Still very fun.
It's cool. Oh, no, good Lord. People ask me, I'm like, oh, yeah, I've made those.
But down the list, you got Elise Winery, McDonald, Chase, Lerner Project, your own Bevan Cellars, Adversity Wines, which I can finally say properly. It's really cool. Anyway, thanks.
Well, McDonald's Graham McDonald, he and Alex.
Sorry, that's right. Yeah.
And Graham's probably the smartest winemaker in Napa Valley. He and his cousin Tom Garrett. Yeah. Those are the 2 young men who I believe, along with you, Chris, are going to lead Napa into the next generation. These are fabulous caretakers of Napa, and I respect and love them so much. And anybody ever wants to come up and ask me to sign a bottle of McDonald, I'll do it. But it's not going to be legit.
That's right. You have a bunch of it at your house. I remember
that's
one party. Russell just starts pulling out all of the McDonald, and that was phenomenal wine. So,
if winemakers don't drink wines that inspire them, that they're not going to be great winemakers for a long time.
See, it is all about the inspiration.
So, have you ever had any police contact or potentially been in the St. Helena police log, Russell?
Not in St. Helena. but let's just say I no longer have to explain how to roll my finger on an ink blotter. I've never had my picture in a post office, but I've had it taken.
Would it be for something like this? Here's a good one. This could be Sunday, December 26th, 11:42 in the morning. A man said he let his friend borrow his car, but now the friend won't give it back. Police assisted.
No, I'm much more like a report of abandoned wheelchair on the side of the road. That's my kind of police blotter. And I was involved with that.
Night gone wrong.
I was going to say, I have a lot of follow-up questions for this wheelchair. Where did the person go? Was it wheelchairs are very expensive. Like, that's some good block market, like, Craigslist stuff right there.
Okay, so have you ever not been able to find a cart at the airport but seen a wheelchair there and thought about using it?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm running around. I've got 10 minutes to check in. I'm like, okay, I don't see anybody. I'll never park in a handicap spot, but I almost grabbed the wheelchair for luggage. I was this close.
Did you make your flight?
I did.
Okay.
You know what? Made it. Oh my God. How will this off?
Well, this is scandalous. At 8:20 in the morning, report of gardeners pushing leaves into the street and illegally dumping near Main and Mitchell.
Well,
I hope those were not my gardeners.
let's see. Here's another good one. Saturday, December 25th, Christmas. A possible drunk driver backing up on Magnolia Avenue hit a basketball hoop and then peeled out heading towards Main Street. As you do. What about, there was a special date in December near the beginning of it, which is Russell Bevan's birthday.
December 1st. Whoop, whoop. Going back to my level of self-celebration tonight's a little high. That's going to calm down potentially as we go. But report of an ongoing problem with loud music and noisy, intoxicated people. Okay, that could have been me.
That's usually your house every weekend.
But I'm in Yountville. But absolutely,
It could echo down the valley.
So we do, and my new stereo system is going to rock the whole valley once it's installed. Pretty
confident if you lived within the St. Helena city limits, we would see a lot more posts about Russell Bevan's parties.
I know. Yeah. Sounds that way.
And I'd be proud of that. But I'm 57. I'm trying to mature, and it's getting that way. And my favorite priest when I was in college used to tell me, maturity is the ability to postpone gratification, and I'm so close. I am so close. But if the party's going, the party's going.
Sure is.
Speaking of parties, do we want to dive into some next door drama?
I think we
should.
Is
it too soon?
It might be a little too soon, but I think we should do it.
Okay. So...
Is everyone familiar with Nextdoor? There's some gold nuggets that come from Nextdoor, which is like a Facebook.
I was going to say, it's like a community Facebook where you can go on and post like, I'm selling this, or do you have a good handyman recommendation?
Sure. Or
I lost my parrot. There's a lot of fun things. And people have a lot of time on their hands in the comment section.
A lot of times. So apparently, there was a party in St. Helena last weekend in January.
Saturday. I don't know what we were doing.
I don't think I was there.
No,
but
not at all.
There's some real classic stuff that came from Nextdoor. Do you want to?
So I'll read the initial post. Loud music starting around 9:45 and now motorcycle racing at the end of Madrona. SHPD completely clueless and not helpful. If you hear it, report it. Freaking loud. In typical fashion, they said, quote, "Oh, it's probably a sheriff department issue. Why don't you call them instead of us?"
Okay. And then, this is my favorite post. We won't mention the name of who said it, but we get it, boys. You have guns and fireworks and pew-pew toys. Is this your way of proving daddy and mommy didn't give you enough attention growing up? Don't bother contacting the St. Helena Police Department. They'll just tell you it's out of their jurisdiction. There are shooting ranges and nearby drunk children. Go find them.
I'm very confused where the guns and shooting came into play because hypothetically, if I had been at this party, there were no firearms.
I can't imagine.
All.
No. Mm-mm. Oh my gosh. So anyway, apparently, and then there was,
People were upset they didn't get invited. Those were my favorite comments.
I think that's it.
They woke up and they were like, I got concerned. I heard the fireworks, and then I
Sad
was
that I
just
wasn't
sad I
invited.
wasn't invited.
As they should have been. I'm sure it was a great party.
Fear of missing out and not being a cool kid is a big thing that at some point in time everybody but us goes through.
My friends make fun of me. I think I have some of the worst FOMO of a lot of people. They said when I have COVID, like the worst part of my quarantine was my FOMO because I could not leave and do anything.
That's about right. Well, you could be drinking wine at home, which...
What wine would I open?
well, what wine are we drinking tonight?
I'm opening Sine Qua Non right now.
Wow.
Manfred Krenkel's one of my heroes and maybe the coolest man on the planet. And so I just thought I'd bring wine made by people cooler than me that, would inspire us to speak truthfully during our podcast.
Well, if you guys haven't seen or heard about Sine Qua Non, that is a absolute fantastic winery down in Santa Barbara.
Ventura
County, okay. Ventura County. And one of the... Would you say that came to be a cult wine win in the,
early 90s.
90s, yeah.
But, I mean, in the big world of California winemaking, you've got Marcassin, you've got Screaming Eagle, and you have Sine Qua Non. You have the Burgundians, the Bordeaux, and the Rhone. And, Harlan's amazing, but what Jeannie Phillips created at Screaming Eagle is different than everything else. What Manfred did is different, so is Marcassin. So everybody aspires to be them, but those are the three kings, or two kings and a queen.
And Manfred makes all of his own labels, right? Now, those are all his artwork? Or
He does.
Yeah.
And last year during harvest, he posted a note, and I'm just repeating what he said, but there was all the fermentation bins behind him, and he said, "I'm working harder than a Monday lunchtime stripper."
Good for him. God bless him.
I was hoping you could explain that to me, Chris, because I read it and it came across hysterical, but I wasn't exactly sure why. And I've been waiting to ask somebody exactly where that could come from.
I don't know what it means.
Yeah, Hillary?
I plead the fifth on this one.
Me too.
So, does a guy how did you get inspired into winemaking? Was it, was it the Monday at the strip club and you decided that was good, or was it Manfred Krenkel? What was your inspiration?
I was a lush. So when I'm fifth generation Sonoma County, and my family during the holidays didn't drink a lot of wine. They drank hard booze. So a bottle of wine was open when I was 12. I was literally taking what was left and putting it in my bedroom and drinking it that night. So my intimate relationship with alcohol started early. And then in high school, I moved from California to Washington State, and I was at a military prep school. My grandfather wanted me to go to a service academy, and all of a sudden I was at a school with girls, and it was so cool. But the starting quarterback was a stud, and I knew I was not going to replace him, so I focused on throwing the discus, but I hosted the keg parties on weekends, and I would purchase or sell tickets for the party Thursday and Friday morning before homeroom, and build enough vig in so I could drink great wine. And I'd drive to Idaho where it was 19, and I would buy great bottles of wine. And I remember drinking 74 Heights, it wasn't Martha's Vineyard, but Heights, out of a red Solo cup while pumping on a keg of PBR when some sophomore was puking on my shoe. And I looked at her boyfriend and I said, "If I spill any of this wine, I'm going to break your neck." That could have been on the police blotter. But I'm finishing your shards.
That's okay.
So I've loved wine my whole life. I worked for Gallo when I was in grad school at Gonzaga. They fired me. I loved alcohol a lot. And they didn't fire me. We separated.
Left amicably.
Assertively.
You parted ways.
It was the only time I've ever assertively been pardoned ways. Yes, it was fabulous. So we parted ways, and I've loved wine ever since. In 1992, I spent more money on wine than I did everything else. Mortgage, car, insurance, taxes, everything.
That's impressive.
My accountant was like, you have a problem.
But here's my question. Of those, which one gave you more enjoyment?
Absolutely. I'm
Absolutely.
I'm somebody who I'm one of the few people on the planet blessed to do what he was born to do. Every day I get up and I'm now doing what I was meant to do, and I know that I'm blessed and I never ever take it for granted.
Cool. Beautiful. So, what other wines we have here today?
I was going to say, what wine did we start
what
with?
Did we start
Tell
with?
us about
We
that.
started with the Adversity Chardonnay, which is really reductive. I put 40% of it in stainless steel, and I never open it, so it's a little, ganky. You get the cabbage, you get the pheromones, you get all those intense qualities that open up very quickly. But when you make wine that reductive, you get all of that beautiful intense texture and all the verve on the palate, and the rest is in 100% new wood because, well, new wood just makes us happy. I love a clean vessel. I love, and I use 100% new oak on everything I do, but I don't want the oak and tannin. I want a clean vessel. I want something that I know the last thing that was in there before my wine was fire. And I love sanitation. You come to a winery where we make wine, you can eat off of the floors, and sanitation is so important. And I love clean barrels. So, yeah, lots of new wood.
And then we rolled into, tell us a little bit about Adversity. This is your new project?
My project with my beautiful wife.
Yep.
And I know, Chris, we've known each other a long time. This will catch you off guard, but being in a relationship with me apparently isn't as easy as I thought it was. And so we faced a kiss of adversity. And when we were starting to build the brand, we looked for vineyards that struggled. Vineyards that are on terraces, vineyards that the Chardonnay planted in sand on the ocean, terraced vineyards that are very old and dry farmed. And so we're intentionally going after vineyards that struggle. And I think the best definition of adversity is being in a continual state of struggle. And so we're working with these amazing vineyards, trying to get the most intense wines that speak to that site and the suffering that those vines go through. And the suffering that my wife, or I, most likely my wife, went through while we were developing our relationship and finally getting married.
Well, it worked out because it was a great partnership.
Amazing.
So cool. Heidi's a saint.
Hot chick.
Beautiful. Hangs out with you. Gotta be cool.
Hot chick.
How did you get so lucky? How did you guys meet, actually? I'm serious.
Bumble.
There you go.
She swiped right on this.
What was her opening line?
I have no idea. Okay. Hey, big boy. No, it wasn't that.
Did she know you were a winemaker when she met you, or did she not?
She did not, and I didn't know that she was a famous pilot, so it was perfect. Greatest first date ever. Claremont Hotel in Berkeley. So we communicated for 4 months back and forth. She came to Napa, tasted with a friend of mine, Josh Peoples. I couldn't be there, and we communicated all the time. And finally said, look, why don't we just do a spa day at the Claremont, and we'll drink a bunch of wine and have a great day. And so we'll do that. Yeah. So I promised her I'd get 2 rooms, or a suite with 2 rooms with a door that locked. Unfortunately, we got there, they didn't have one of those, so I just got a large room. But
worked out.
But it worked out. Before we were done with lunch, I had a bottle of vintage Krug, a bottle of vintage Biacart Saumon Cuvée, and a bottle of Bevan Cellars in her. And she'd not eaten much that day because she was going on a date, and I didn't order food quickly. So I'm not going to say I Bill Cosby'd her, but with wine, but I may have Bill Cosby'd her. So we never made it to the spa. Could that be on the blotter? Wait a minute.
This is so much more exciting.
And here we are today.
I don't even think we can read these police logs anymore. It's just not funny. We need Russell to just talk.
So the Claremont's a lovely hotel, and it worked out.
Absolutely. If you're ever in room 1342, just ask for a different room.
Because they will never live up to the love inspiration story that you created there. That's why, right?
Either that, or it's like the Stephen King novel where the 2 little girls are staring at you. It's not good. The demons will never be exorcised. I don't care how much sage you burn. That room is tainted forever. 1342.
Lucky number.
Wow, does anyone have any good locks?
Okay, I do have a question on this one. Speaking of locking things, like
Rooms?
Heidi didn't have the opportunity to lock you out. Sunday, December the 5th, 10:27, a young girl locked herself inside a car on Monte Vista.
I thought it was like a 15-year-old, and you said it was probably a 3-year-old.
I think it's a 3-year-old.
Which makes more sense.
Yeah. But like initially when I read this, I envisioned a high school girl like, help, I've locked myself in the car.
I mean, I've locked my keys in the car before, and I'm not supposed to be able to do that, and somehow it still happens.
Mm-hmm. How about a loose chihuahua found on near Library Lane? The person planned to keep it in case its owner came forward. Owner was later reported to be looking for it.
Oh, disappointment.
A caller reported receiving unknown number and emails stated that he'd subscribed to a company. He wasn't aware of having any contact with the company. So I'm just going to admit that there's been nights where it's very late at night and I've been drinking and my laptop is open and I've got different websites open and pop-ups show up. And I'm pretty sure some of those pop-ups may have put me on watch lists somewhere. But it's nothing I've ever clicked on. But this is back before you had your Mac and all the good internet security. So things would just pop up. And
how'd they do?
I never clicked on any of those things. Wasn't me, officer. So I kind of understand where this guy was coming from. Or gal.
I can imagine Russell saying, if I ever die, just send someone to delete my browser history.
And we all meet people, and one of my first thoughts, I'm a bit of a judgy-wudgy bear, according to my wife, is there's people you meet and you're like, you do not want to know what's on that person's browser history. There are certain people, it's like, nope, don't want to know. It's like, are either one of you on social media other than this?
I mean, yeah.
Like Instagram.
So I have an Instagram account and I've never posted anything. And I'm going to be a tad intimate with us today because I'm sure there's only like 8-9 people that are eventually going to listen to this. But I went to the urologist Friday. And we haven't been drinking much before this, just for the record. And the doctor hadn't met me yet. And there was nothing gracious about our relationship. But literally, I get in the room, and before they take my blood pressure, the lady comes in with this wand and covers it with jelly and says, I'm ready to begin our procedure. And I'm like, it's just one of those things where you're caught off guard. And
But that's just for scanning the bladder.
But I sure as hell hope so.
It doesn't look like it.
It looks like Flash Gordon's about to send me into another planet through the wrong way because I'm at the bloody urologist's office.
This is a urologist, not a proctologist.
Yeah, but look how big that is. but yes.
That would be intimidating, yes.
I had to tinkle, and this measured how many cc's of tinkle were still left in my bladder. It was 100 cc's, so I'm now on Flomax. Is that oversharing?
0.4 milligrams a day?
She's the medical professional. I have no idea. I thought Flomax was for asthma.
No. For Tickazone.
Whatever, Hillary.
Flomax makes you tinkle.
Well,
Yes.
now I know.
We use it for, but not, we're going to listen now. We use it for kidney stones. We use it for BPH, for prostate issues. It's a wonderful drug.
There you go.
Flomax sponsor us.
So next time you have any urology questions, I'm sure Hillary will be able to cut you a really cheap deal on it.
Well, so they did the test and things turned out well. And he's like, so we're having you back in 2 weeks and we're going to put a fiber optic cable through into your prostate so we can see exactly how big it is. And so I'm like, oh yeah, no, you're not. And so he's like, it's not that bad. And all I can picture is E.T.'s finger. It's like, there's no way this is going to be good. He said, no, we're going to put 3 cups of warm water in there first. I'm like, well, there we go. Because I'm here because I tinkle 18 times a day. That much water, I'm going to tinkle all over you and E.T.'s finger if you try to do that to me.
Russell, you got to find a better dentist.
So, Hillary, what was next on the blog?
So, there was a large pothole on Pope Street Bridge. Police notified Public Works.
Oh, damn potholes.
How were the roads when you first moved to Napa?
Well, bless Nancy Pelosi. She's brought enough federal funding to make them almost okay.
Almost. What is the worst street in St. Helena for potholes?
Oh, that's a good question.
I live in Yountville, and State Lane is a bit of a mess. We've got the huge vineyard at the end, and it gets pretty beat up.
Yeah, I'd say Madrona's pretty rough.
Madrona's rough. Pratt's rough.
Definitely. But seriously, what was it like when you first moved here?
Well, they shut down Pratt for so long.
I know.
What was it like when you first moved to Napa? How has it changed?
And what year was that?
Yeah, what year?
Well, so I'm a Sonoma County boy, so I came over here, and I used to make wine at Napa Wine Company. My first years was right after Heidi Barrett left Shoket Vineyards, and I used to have to drive from Santa Rosa up and over Trinity Road and Oakville Cross Road.
Great road.
4 times a day. So I drive over for morning pump downs and punch overs and drive home, work, and come back. And doing that 4 times a day, it was quite the drive. I went through a lot of tires, and I hate to admit, but I've passed people on that road. It's quite the trip, but that stretch has always been pretty daunting.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a road. But, going up and over St. Helena to Santa Rosa, that road's a mess all the time too.
There's construction often.
Well, PG&E and their militant wing who cuts down the trees, they love to stop you. Well, no, those tree people and the way they hold their signs, I mean, they think they're the FBI.
They are very entitled.
Oh my goodness.
Very indignant. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
I always try to wave and be friendly and hope they're wearing Skechers so their backs don't hurt or something. But it's
you know what? I don't think I've ever driven through one of those and looked at their shoes. But now I'm going to every.
Miss Style over here.
Well, thank you. That's a compliment. Thank you.
Meant it as such, I think.
I noticed your boots when I first walked in.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They could also sponsor us, Furners. Come on, give us a go. Handmade in Barcelona.
Yep, still waiting on a sponsor. Steve's Hardware, come on. Gott's did sponsor us. With some free burgers. Thank you, Joel Gott. Speaking of, where do you go to eat? What is your? I've seen you before out. Press, I've seen you.
So well, you saw me on Halloween at
quite
Press.
A night at Press.
Dressed up as DJ Cabernet, and my wife is Missy Merlot. And we were banging hot that night.
If I can just give everyone a quick mental representation of what that looked like. Imagine Russell full of gold chains, like way more than Tupac, like big gold chains, gold suit, big silver, a big dollar sign, and Heidi dressed up in a one-piece gold shimmering leotard?
Skin tight, yeah.
Jumpsuit?
Jumpsuit.
Painted on.
I mean,
Belle of
the ball. Belle of the ball.
Yeah.
It was very cool.
And my so we were rocking it pretty hard.
So who wore it better, Gold Member or Russell?
Russell. I love me some Gold Member though. Napa Valley for food it's a challenge, and it's fabulous. We have some of the greatest restaurants in the world here. I love to go where I know all of the servers and I get love. And I'll eat food that's 2 points lower in quality if I just feel comfortable and I like being there. And so I want to be in the womb of the restaurant and feel love. So, Brasswood is awesome. I love the team there. Going back to Trevigny, when Trevigny was open there, I ate there 5 days a week. It was my home. I love that place. Red was the same way. Red was so fabulous. And the quality of food in Napa right now is so high, but because of COVID, it's lost its personal touch. And we've lost so many servers. And, the level of excellence is higher than it's ever been. The level of compassion isn't what I want it to be.
So how do we get that back?
We got to get over COVID and start rocking. The roaring 20s are coming. Once COVID's done, everybody has cash right now. I mean, people are working, there's money. Once the world opens up and we say masks are gone and Fauci says party on, we're going to go crazy. And it's going to be that way again. I hope so. And where in God's name are all these people who aren't working, who used to work? It's like, how many lazy people are there out there? And do we want these monkeys to be working again anyway? But it's tough. You can't get a sous chef. Yeah. I mean, Bistro Gentil, they're struggling for staffing. Bouchon isn't as open as it used to be because they can't get staffing. And it's tough. It's so expensive to live here. And people complain about our prices, yet businesses struggle to survive and they can't afford to pay employees. Most of the sous chefs working in St. Helena live in Vallejo or Fairfield. It's brutal.
And how do you think COVID affected the wine industry?
It was awesome for wine. Yeah. People were stuck at home with their family and they were drinking. In the most wineries, the good wineries had their best years ever because people were opening them and loving them. The wineries that make okay wine, people were opening them, drinking them, and saying, I don't need to buy any more of those. So there's a lot of wineries who've had their best years ever during COVID. But then we hit the fires of 2020, and that was just absolutely horrific. And so revenue stream wise, so many wineries may shut down because they don't have the liquidity to cover the next 18 months. And so it's going to be interesting. But
quite
COVID
a delayed effect that you don't really think about because they don't realize that loss until they go to sell it. Yeah. There's nothing to be sold. I mean, did you make 2020s?
I'm making some, but literally just 10% of what I'd normally make.
Yeah. Wow.
Stuff that I know is clean.
Yeah.
That I can chemically prove to my customers. So every wine I've blended, I've already sent that into labs so the labs can actually show them proof of the wine not having markers of smoke taints. Because I want to be able to tell my consumers, look, you're buying safe wine. I've been doing this for a long time and I'm not going to jeopardize my relationship with my customers by giving them something that qualitatively they're not going to enjoy.
Sure. Now, does that become harder with COVID? Has anyone lost their sense of smell and not been able to pick up on smoke taint?
Nobody that I know of. I was so scared of COVID only for that because I didn't care. Yeah. COVID's not going to mess with me. I mean, I was looking for somebody with COVID early on to lick just so I could get over it before there was vaccinations. I'm like, just let me get it and get it over with. I mean, that's.
I think we found the name of our podcast. Looking for someone to lick. That's the name of this episode.
I was going to say, as horrible as this is to say, well, not really, but my group of friends was saying, is COVID going to turn into the new chicken pox, where like we all share lollipops? Like
Absolutely.
At this point, with the new variants, it's kind of like just get it now, and then you can travel and things like that, and you've dealt with it already. Yep. Granted, we're all lucky enough to not be those immunocompromised old 90-year-old people, which is good.
Sure. Yeah. This Sine Qua Non Grenache is so plush and beautiful. It is almost pure strawberry goodness, but Grenache has so many qualities like Pinot. The color's not as dark, but you get the phenolics and tannins, and it's kind of like Nebbiolo, Pinot, and Grenache all have this weight that you don't know when you look at the color, but this is a 19 Sine Qua Non. It's got the big rooster because, Manfred can get away with it, and it is just absolutely fabulous right now. I love this wine.
Have you been down there to taste with him? Or visit?
No, but he once came up, he and Elaine, and spent a weekend in Santa Rosa tasting all of the wines they'd made at that point in time at my house, and that was maybe the coolest weekend of my life.
Oh, that's so cool.
We went to dinner one night, and he put his credit card down and I took my picture. My very first selfie ever was me holding his credit card next to my face. I thought it was so cool.
Who inspires you? Who inspires you to be a winemaker? Is it him? Where do you draw inspiration?
But before then, I mean, Helen Turley, if I was in hell and I had to pick one winemaker to make a perfect wine to bail my ass out, Helen Turley, no questions asked. Mm-hmm. But, Philip Togny up on Spring Mountain, that old goat, he's such a fabulous man. And he lectured me on attention to detail and dirt and knowing your dirt. And, back when Greg LaFollette was at Flowers, he taught me about the chemistry side, but he said the best winemakers are chemists who cry at night because you have to have an intimate connection to it. And, there's so many winemakers in this valley who consider themselves artists, and that's so much poop. Great artists when it comes to winemaking is Mother Nature and that piece of dirt and the farmers who are doing it. The winemakers are the caretakers of those grapes. Do we have input? Your father, Chris, and I, we walk the vineyard together and we talk about how we're going to farm that block. But the only artistry we have is possibly blending different things together and working with different barrel makers to magnify the intensity of one quality or another. But winemakers aren't artists. It's the amazing dirt and terroir and climate that we have in Napa that's the artistry. And Philip talked about that. He was like, the greatest wine I ever made was the 69 Chapelet, which I believe is the greatest wine in the history of California. And it was fourth leaf fruit with leaf roll. It was pulled out 2 years later, but it made the greatest wine ever because of the attention to detail of the farmers that year and that site. And yeah, artists.
Beautiful.
We're caretakers. We nurture, we move along, but if you think you're an artist, you're disrespecting the piece of dirt who gave you the excellence.
Well said. Wow.
I really am inspired.
Gosh, I'm inspired too. So are you taking that philosophy? Are you passing that down to the next generation of winemakers? Like, how do you see your role to the new folks?
I work with a bunch of great young men and women, and the only thing they know that I push incredibly hard is sanitation comes first. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be clean. If you're not clean, so many bad things can happen. You have to use common sense, and you have to drink. If you don't like wine and taste a lot of wine, Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. You need to study your chosen field and embrace it and then live it. The Beatles' best music were after they played Oompa Loompa in Germany for 5 years, 4 days a week, and they got to know each other. You have to drink wine. And with harvest, you're never going to get 10,000 hours because it's compressed. You only get so many harvests in your lifetime. So the rest of the year, you need to travel to winemaking regions. I've been to Germany. I all my vacations are either to swim with fish or drink wine with great winemakers and get inspired. And you need to love and embrace wine to truly be a great winemaker.
Yeah. Nice. Of the whole world, if you could have 10 free tons to make whatever you wanted, where would you go to make wine? If cost was no issue and you could just do it without having to travel.
To make it, it's Napa Cabernet. To drink, it's absolutely going to be wines that Klaus-Peter Keller made in Germany. I think Klaus-Peter Keller is the greatest white winemaker that I've ever tasted wine from. And I've actually opened bottles of his wine and had to walk away because I got emotional drinking them and thinking about the site and what he did and who he is. And he's amazing. What he does with Riesling, nobody does with any other varietal right now. Helen Turley used to do with Cabernet, the 94 and 97 Bryant's, the 92 Colgan. I mean, oh my God. But he's doing that with white wine right now. Mm-hmm. But his dry Rieslings this year are $500+ a bottle.
A little spendy.
Wow. Yeah. But I buy every one I can find. My wife hates the fact that I have zero savings, but we drink really well.
Again, what makes you happier?
Absolutely. And I'm going to die well before her anyway. So she made me get a life insurance policy, so she's got that.
I'm sure there's some Money held out at 1342 Fairmont. There's probably a couple quarters underneath the bed still. So, oh my gosh.
Report of a drunk person lying down on the sidewalk and stumbling along Hunt Avenue. Police determined that the person was not intoxicated. So, what are we thinking that person was?
I'm thinking this person was sitting at this table.
Not intoxicated, stumbling? Probably accurate.
Ambient?
No, just emotional trauma.
Yes. I would concur with that.
Okay, so this was December 9th. So, Chris, exactly what are we talking about emotionally that happened to you that day?
It was probably Army drill, actually.
Person was not intoxicated. That's awesome. He was just stumbling.
But it doesn't sound like they were like high either, because I think they would have put like under the influence of something.
Guys, if I'm walking and my eyes are turned to the ground, I'm just looking for spare change. I'm not depressed. It's fine.
And so my next favorite one from that day, an officer helped people take photos of themselves under the Christmas star at Maine and Charter Oak. Well, there you go. You know that it's a busy day when that makes the police blotter.
They're just our local photographers and law enforcement. It's a dual job.
Perfect. And that's the kind of quality you get with a small town police
Protect, serve, and selfie.
Yes. I think we just found our title.
I really like looking for someone to lick. We could do a little colon in there. Looking for someone to lick. Protect, serve, and selfie. I like it. Done. We'll have our producer Brett write that up.
Yeah, dude. I feel like Brett needs a little shout out.
We should give him a shout out. Thanks to Brett, for our producer for tonight. He's taking over for Julia, who's never been here besides for one episode. So, we tend to have a celebrity or a cameo producer come on occasionally. And Brett's the guy tonight. So, for that, we thank you.
He's got great facial hair.
He does.
I'm saying that as a straight man. I love my wife, but that's some fine facial hair right there. It's just long enough. Man has a game.
He is.
When it comes to facial hair.
He's a top man.
I'm opening a Bevan Cellars 2019 Dr. Crane Cabernet Sauvignon from Andy Beckstoffer's vineyard in St. Helena, as we're in St. Helena. And I'll say this. Andy Beckstoffer's vineyards, his super premium vineyards, they farm them so beautifully. There's a reason all of those wines are special. There are even, for the love of God, some winemakers who I don't care for stylistically, but when they make a wine from one of his vineyards, the wines turn out fabulous. And I've got no vested interest or anything. I don't need to kiss up to Andy, but man, his sites make some of the most dynamic, fabulous wines. Well, of course, G.I. Joe has a blade. So, for those of you listening, my foil cutter is a tad dull. I don't even know how to close that. So, Chris pulled out Crocodile Dundee, and we now have a foil removed. Okay, next on the blotter here, Hillary.
I want to hear about Bevan Cellars. That was your first project personally, correct?
And I used to make fun of winemakers who were so narcissistic that they named their wineries after themselves, and then I became one. and I don't feel guilty about it. So Bevan Cellars, Victoria De Crescenzo and I, we spent every dime we had starting Bevan Cellars. At one point in time, Victoria had $750,000 of credit card debt covering our costs to start the brand. We would go out and celebrate and have dinner on nights where we got checks from one credit card company to move a balance to another. And all of a sudden we had liquidity. Our 401s were cashed in, our IRAs were cashed in. We were broke. And
no better way to ensure success.
It was, we were hungry, and it went, nope. We have your stem here, sir. You're absolutely fine.
Well, when you're fully...
you're forced to be hungry, and you're all in. But I'm just going to say, this wine It has buttery hips.
I love that.
It's got.
I think you're the most descriptive wine person I've ever met.
I
And you have
just
some
want to
amazing
use
ways.
these in my everyday life for description.
But feel this in your mouth. Put it in your mouth. I'm talking about the wine. Chris gave me a dirty look for a second. Hillary smiled at me. It was awkward. We didn't know where to go.
So you know how a podcast
Wait a minute.
works.
Hillary gave me a dirty look and Chris smiled at me. Sorry.
This is outstanding. Those hips, they don't lie.
It buttery hips. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what would you say your style is for winemaking? I mean, I kind of know already, but
So
explain to our
I
listeners.
do not apologize. I love things that are beautiful and seductive. So I make the most concentrated, massive wines with refined, decadent textures. It's, for me, all about managing phenolics. We go to great vineyards, and like yours, Chris, and literally when I met your father and I was going to get grapes from this site, I brought my old tasting notes because I was so excited to ask him about the property, because I want to work with vineyards where I don't have to care about the flavors or the aromatics. You work with a site that's special. Mother Nature, that dirt, and the farmer are going to give them to you. Your job is to manage textures. When things come to the winery, we do everything at a very small, slow rate, and we do everything to create concentration and never make a wine hard. So we ferment very cool. Most wineries will get their fermentations over 80 degrees. At 80 degrees, you start to pull some of the tannins and phenolics out of the seeds that give you those coarser tannin kitty cat tongue qualities. We don't do extended maceration on anything, because once the wine has alcohol as a solvent pulls hard tannins out. So we ferment cold, we press sweet, we let things finish. Everything is geared towards seductive textures. Hillary's not even looking at me a little bit right now. I talk with my hands a lot.
I'm taking it all in.
But I want something that speaks to the sight, that's decadent in the mouth.
Beautiful.
That's what I do, and I hope people like it.
And the proof is in the bottle. But these are absolute outstanding wines.
But this is good.
I mean,
This is just the
phenomenal.
right
So much
amount
fun.
of baby oil before you
Go in the tanning bed?
yes. Think about your lover with you're lubing up your partner at the beach, and you have just enough baby oil on it, and it's firm, it pushes back, it's creamy, everything is fabulous. That's what a great wine should be like on the palate.
What was the decision that made you decide to make your own? Like, instead of, doing it for other people, when you decided you were ready for your own label?
Nobody would hire me, so I had no choice. But I wanted to do things differently, and I went to every winemaker that I respected, and I would bring wine to their wineries, and I'd typically bring Chateauneuf de Pape and White Burgundy, and I'd get them drunk so they'd stay and answer every geeky question I had, and I would ask them questions till the wee small hours, and I just sucked everything up, and I read all the books, and I love wine. The other day I was with one of your former people, Thomas Brown, and he was like, God, I've been drinking, White Burgundy 5 nights a week for the last 3 weeks. And when he said it, there was this huge smile on his face. And you love wine, and it shows in your wines. And I wanted to make wines that people were excited to drink. Randy Dunn makes amazing wines, but they take so long. I wanted to make something that had youthful fruit. All of these wines, you taste the fruit, but they're not hard. You don't have to wait 10 years to get pleasure out of these. Right now, they're naughty and they want to play, and I like that.
Just like you, I would describe you the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so you do work with a lot of these small vineyards, family, and like you said, back in the day, you worked with a lot of those small wineries and knew those winemakers who were kind of the old guard of Napa, right? So how do you feel about the consolidation and everything kind of changing? And we've got a lot of transactions happening and a lot of big companies taking over smaller vineyards.
Well,
What are your thoughts?
you know what really blows is if you graduate right now from Davis and you want to make great Cabernet, you can't come to Napa. Competition for fruit here is so high. We spend so much money. You're almost priced out of Sonoma as well. So these young men and women are going to Paso, they're going to Santa Ynez, they're going to Santa Rita, they're going to Amador, they're going to El Dorado. They can't come here to make wine. And I think the best and the brightest who want to start right off the bat making amazing wines like Helen Keplinger did when she got out of Davis. Some of these people, there's not that opportunity. And I worry about the stagnation of Napa. And Napa's got that going against it. And then Napa has the fact that it's Napa going against it. And I hate the fact that everybody's growing Cabernet Sauvignon. This valley, people ask me all the time, okay, global warming. Global warming's horrific. It's going to change everything. But most of Napa isn't planted to the right row orientation, the right varietal, the right rootstock. Global warming is a small thing compared to the other issues that Napa's looking at if we're looking at making the world's best wines. There's so many vineyards here that are poorly planted, that are farmed horrifically, that weren't thought out when they were put in. And we have so much growth to do qualitatively just from replanting Napa that global warming is a smaller issue. We have ways to mitigate heat. Shade cloth, sprinklers, misters, row orientation, all these things. And Napa is hurt because we can't bring in the best young minds and because so much of the valley is still planted incorrectly. Everybody's obsession with Cabernet Sauvignon keeps us from planting Grenache, keeps us from planting Syrah, and in some places white varietals like up on Hell Mountain. And Napa's best days are ahead of it. We just have to start planting things to what should be planted and not what might be Cash King right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you think we'll kill the golden goose by doing this? We've said you're the king of cab. You do everything you do. Well, not everything. A lot of what you do is cab centered, but
if we want to qualitatively make the best wines possible, we have to cut back on Cabernet.
yeah.
It's almost like having fabulous dirt in Rutherford and growing Chenin Blanc.
Never knew anyone who did that. Shout to Ray Corson who said, plant Cabernet.
We love you, Ray. But yeah, the valley is still... I was actually hopeful that red blotch would be worse and force more new plantings because we'd have more vines planted to the right rootstocks and done the right way.
So what do you think it takes to change that ship direction? Is it economic?
It's purely economics. The economics right now, this engine is running so hot and fast that you can sell low quality grapes for a super premium price to somebody who's making so much wine that it's just a blend in. And the average price of a ton of grapes next year will probably be 40% to 50% above what it was last year for Napa Valley average. And you just look at the economics and it's crazy. And I make wine from one vineyard that my cost per bottle was about $85 for grapes.
Wow. Incredible.
But that's the economics. And the reason I wanted to make this Dr. Crane was because I wanted my style of farming and winemaking to be demonstrated through a vineyard that has tons of winemakers who I love and respect and care for and show what my vision would do. So I wanted this to be tried next to Mike Smith's wines, to Thomas Brown's wines, to Philippe Melka's wines, and all these great people because I do things so differently. And for me, this was my chance to compete with the big boys and prove what I do and show what my representation of great Cabernet is. So I begged Andy Erickson, another pure stud, but I begged Andy Beckstoffer to let me have some fruit so I could compete with something that everybody else had.
Absolutely.
So when people in 5 years do 2019s from Dr. Crane, I'm happy to pull my junk out, open my bottle, pull a cork. I love it.
Oh, goodness. This was not the night to be the sober one.
Shout out to Hillary who's on call. Has to remain sober. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
A space heater had charred a wall on Main Street. There were no active flames, but the wall was still hot. The fire department responded. Okay, this has to be in front of a bar where there's smokers who had a space heater trying to keep them warm, right? What else could that be?
That's what I was trying to figure out. I don't know. Unless it was the Christmas time, so was there something maybe with like all the Christmas decor and something like that?
As long as the barrel Christmas tree didn't light on fire or fall over from an earthquake.
That would have been a sight.
Tragedy. Wow. So what are you most excited about in the future for Napa and for your brands there, Russell?
I'm excited that we now have some technology for vintages like 2020 where there's a couple processes that are allowing us to deal with smoke taint. I think that's a big thing to deal with here in the future. I'm excited for the redevelopment of small vineyards, allowing us to improve the quality, because some family that has 5 acres that redevelops and gets a young smart winemaker who can grow with it and make something special, because there are so many great vineyards that are going into these big wines. And I think the quality shift in the early 90s was people who were selling their wines to Caymus and Silver Oak and all these places that all of a sudden they made their own brands, and they hired a consulting winemaker, and all of a sudden you had all these new brands that were exciting and dynamic, and there was this energy in Napa in the mid to late 90s, and that was the next opening period, and we're ready for that next evolution of Napa to start.
Nice. You don't think we're overdoing it with too many wine labels or too many wineries? And I guess it all boils down to the consumer, right? So how do you think, here's a question, how do you think the consumer's changing palate will affect Napa's sustainability as a wine region in the future?
Unless you're crazy rich, you can't make wine here that's not fabulous, because you're going to go broke. And so your quality is going to dictate your success or failure almost instantly. You can't play in the big leagues here in Napa unless you've got an A game. And that's why somebody like Thomas or Mike Smith, they have so many clients, because those people will blend and make a wine from your small site meticulously, and you're going to have a super high quality of wine. And there's only so many people who can bring that, and I think that those people do it, and they're protecting Napa. It's a shame that there's not enough young winemakers coming up that can take on that role, but you have to have those kings, and those guys. I mean, what Mike Smith and what he's doing with his different clients is absolutely awesome.
Are they reaching out to millennials like we need to sustain this? So is the millennial palate changing the way wines are made?
Millennials are not drinking these wines yet.
I don't think they
most
can
of
afford
them are
yet.
beer drinkers, and Napa Cabs are $200 a bottle. It's crazy expensive. So no, the millennials haven't caught the wine bug. They will.
That's the question. Will it happen?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool.
So one of the things Hillary and I were talking about earlier is we were talking about La Coussée. And as people mature, there's things they learn to do and love. And I've been watching Julia Child cooking, and I made her beef bourguignon, and 2 cups of wine for the beef bourguignon, 3 for me. And I spent the day cooking beef bourguignon, and I started with raw ingredients. I chopped carrots for 15 minutes. I made my mirepoix. The whole time I was drinking, I'd already gone to the gym, so I didn't care. And it was me, a knife, a cutting board, and a bunch of fabulous ingredients, and my wife. And that was a damn fine day. And I think almost everybody, when they learn to start cooking and doing that, will get on board. And right now, that's something that I think society is starting to understand. We need real ingredients and real food again. So I've been trying. I made lo mein, and I bought handcrafted noodles, but I spent the day prepping, and I researched how to get a great oyster sauce that was, and I've been geeking on a Sunday, just cooking and drinking, and it's a fabulous day. And millennials will eventually experience that.
Good.
I
Maybe
think
the
that's
most
a
well
fabulous
said,
day.
most well said millennial turned into wine fan speech I've ever heard. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
Great philosophy.
till then, twits.
So, if we wanted to get those twits into drinking Bevan Cellars, where would we send them?
How would they
Or
purchase
into
it?
Adversity, or into Elise Winery.
All of you twits with disposable income, www.bevancellars.com.
Send it.
Adversitysellers.com. I mean, but they just need to start drinking good wine. And so many of the people in this valley will hate me for saying this, but if you only have $25 to buy a bottle of wine, buy Gallo. They deliver high quality at every price point they're at. If it says Gallo and it's not one of their other labels where they're intentionally making something that's artificially sweet or something, $20 from Gallo gets you $20 worth of wine.
And it's a good starting point.
Absolutely. $20 from Gallo is equal to $50 from a lot of people in Napa, unfortunately, because of the cost of the land and everything else. And when you go to a technical seminar and you listen to the Gallo people talk, they're the most informed. They do more R&D. I mean, they're an amazing organization. I have huge respect for Gallo. They drag the rest of California up from a R&D standpoint because they have the money to do it. And in Australia, 10 cents for every gallon of wine or every liter of wine goes back into R&D. In the United States, we don't do that. So our research and development is privately funded, or the funds we get from the university system, which we know is struggling compared to other countries that fund it. And Gallo does an amazing job. I've put their wines in blind tasting and had people cuss at me after because they didn't want to know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, good. Hillary, any remaining thoughts with the police log?
I want to hear the squirrel one.
I think wait.
That was mine.
Russell's got it.
And then,
This
and
is
then
a great
we
one to
can
end on.
close off.
He's got it. It has a star on it. There it is.
Here we go. This was December 7th as well, which the day started off with a gutter that fell off a building, which, daggum, 911. We need Sergeant Hammer on that. But at 16:41 hours, a caller reported another driver swerved and purposely hit a squirrel on Spring Street. Okay, so we're in agreement that squirrels want to die. How is the monkey driving a car behind you knowing which way the squirrel's going? Because we've all had a squirrel in front of us go, do, do, do. They go Barry Sanders on you. You don't know which way these furry little animals are going to go. Those long claws, those big brown eyes, that they want to die. So they're and how does the guy behind you know which direction he was going? The guy was trying to save that squirrel. The person who called that in should be smacked. We all know squirrel technology. Their brains aren't wired the right way. Okay. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Wholeheartedly agree. Thank you, Russell. This has been an absolute blast.
Lovely.
My favorite one yet. Thank you, guys. Brett, thanks for coming along.
Thank you, Brett.
Bye.
Cheers, everybody.
We love squirrels.
Well, that was a delightful episode.
That was a lot of fun. A very intimate view into the mind and world of Russell Bevan.
We covered a lot of topics.
So many.
Nice wine, urology, Flomax.
Room 1341.
And, the way to successfully have a first date.
Yes, and if Russell could write a book, I would buy it.
Oh, I would 100% buy it. I would want to go on that book tour because I feel like every event would be a new fun story.
It would be an absolute blast. But you can't buy books from Russell, but you can buy wine. So it's, I guess, the next best thing.
I would agree. And you know what? You can buy hats from us.
There you go. Great segue into the 911 hat.
Feel free to DM us on Instagram at 91wine. I'll spell out the words, not the numbers. And we'll get you hooked up with one.
Sounds great.
Have a magical month, everyone.
See ya.
You enjoy your evening and be safe.